All right, so this is pre-training, and the first thing we kind of want to start with is feeding your dog. Obviously, this is kind of part of the first section, but I just ended up putting it in this section here. Um, there are a few things you need to know about the feeding. You've picked the food already, now you got to feed your dog. And I find often the back of the bag gives you a little bit of a layout on a little schedule on when to feed and how much per day and stuff. But I still find that a lot of people have a lot of issues or trying to figure out what to feed, how much and when and all that kind of stuff. So over the years, I observed my own dogs. I've gotten feedback from other people, and I basically came up with the conclusion that when you start with your puppy, you basically follow a little routine that I find that works best for most people, and from there you just take your own direction, of course. So, as a puppy, it's just like a baby. You need to feed your puppy a few more times than when they're young, than when they're older. Just like babies, they need a few meals a day, and littler portions than when they're older. So as a puppy, because they're kind of like babies, they need a few meals. So what I recommend you do for the first few weeks is give your dog 3 meals a day. I know a lot of people can't do this. You have work, you go away, you're not home during lunch hour. It happens, it's life. Ideally, 3 meals, if you can. If not, at least breakfast and dinner. A dog should always have at least 2 meals a day. A dog should never have just 1 meal. They should always have 2 meals a day. Breakfast and dinner are mandatory. Now, once a dog is trained, a puppy is trained, and it doesn't have accidents in the house anymore, you could, if you want to, leave the food out for the entire day. That way they have a chance to eat whenever, and that's okay. But for training purposes, you want to remove the food. So ideally, as I said, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It depends on the size of the dog. A smaller dog, like a small puppy, should eat about 3 meals per day till they're about 4 months old. If it's a medium to a large dog, they should have 3 meals for the first 6 months of their life. After that, you go to twice a day for life. And now comes a slightly confusing part. Once they're trained, you could leave the food out. So it's up to you eventually to decide, here's your food for the day. When it's done, that's done. Or, here's your breakfast. Now it's gone. Here's your dinner. And now it's gone. So that's up to you to decide later on. But ideally, again, as I said, 2 meals should really do it. So, how much to feed your puppy? Because this sometimes gets a little confusing. I've had some people ask me this before, and there were, as I said, there were some people confused, and what ended up happening was they were underfeeding their puppy, meaning the puppy was starving. It wasn't getting enough food. Because they misread the label on the back, they ended up giving the dog not enough, and over a few weeks, the puppy was always starving. It was very, very hungry. So what happened was, this puppy became a bit protective of the little bit that it was getting. So in order to avoid this, because what happened was when people came near the food bowl and near the puppy when it was eating, it was becoming protective. So it was actually growling at the person. And that's, of course, a bit of an alarming situation because that's not what should happen. But what actually happened was the puppy was just so protective of its food. This is all I'm going to have. I better eat up because this is it. So in order to avoid that, and it happened a few times over a course of a year that I've heard this feedback from people, I started telling everybody, as long as there is food left at the end of the day, you know your puppy had enough. So what I tell everybody now, fill the bowl in the morning for the entire day. Here's your breakfast. Now it's gone. Here's your lunch. Now it's gone. Here's your dinner. Now it's gone. By the time you take it away from dinner at dinner time, you want to make sure there's still some food left. That way you know the dog had enough to eat. You give them 3 meals and you give them about 15 minutes to eat. That way they have enough time to eat And at the end of the day, after a few days, they realize this is the time that I have to eat. I better eat up or it's gone. So they will get used to the routine. And when it's gone for the last time and there's food left, you know that they've had enough. If they finish it, put a little bit extra in. If they're no longer interested, fine. If they finish that, then it's time to reconsider how much you're actually feeding your dog, because they may either be overeating or they really had to have a lot more. So obviously there's a couple of concerns here. There are some breeds out there that will continue to eat. Now, if you think your dog may be doing that, you can test it one day and see how far this can go. Just to kind of get a little bit of a feel for, okay, doggy, you're eating way too much. At that point, you have to measure and kind of figure out what they really should be eating at that point in their life. And you may have to ask your vet, and you could read the label in the back of the bag, or maybe even contact the company that provides this dog food. That's kind of how you can kind of consider how much they should be eating. So that's kind of in a nutshell how the whole thing about feeding is. It's not very difficult, but unfortunately, and this is really from feedback from people, is that this is actually a fairly confusing situation. So again, the key behind all of this is, as long as there's food left at the end of the day, you know your dog had enough. So hopefully that was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video.